Hello, everyone. Topic of today's lecture is U.S. Court system. In the United States, courts they serve two primary purposes. First, they check the power of U.S. President and U.S. Congress, and second, they protect individual rights and liberties. Supreme Court is the most important court in the United States. Difference between the involvement of courts in policymaking in comparison to executive branch and legislative branch is that courts consider specific cases. They make like small changes, small caveats in public policy. Like overall, public policy in the United States is done by executive and legislative branch. However, there have been a few very important decisions which kind of made big changes in public policy. I will talk about it later. For example, Brown versus Board of Education, the decision by Supreme Court that public schools must be desegregated. Things like Miranda rights, things like ability of people to get married if they are of same sex. Important thing that court do, they interpret the laws and sometimes they make small changes in the laws. For example, Affordable Care Act, which was passed in 2010 during Obama presidency, it was challenged in Supreme Court like many times. One of the examples would be a Hobby Lobby case in which Supreme Court ruled that in closely held companies, employers could deny women maternity care because in those close-held companies, those owners, they might have religious beliefs which contradict maternity care, like abortion rights, things like that. In the United States, there is a dual court system on federal and on state level, and they try cases based on federal and state laws. This would be an example. Supreme Court is, again, the most important court. They can reverse decisions by like federal system and by like state Supreme Courts. Some of the benefits and disadvantages of a dual court system. Benefit would be you have multiple avenues to address your legal issues. Drawbacks would be that you could face charges at the same time in state and federal courts. And legal representation could become extremely difficult and expensive. Some of the differences between state courts and federal courts. State courts hear like most cases, like most of them, and they concern like everyday things. Federal courts more often they try cases which involve federal government. Some of the similarities, state and federal courts, they both can hear civil and criminal cases. And I would say difference between state courts and federal courts on state level matters, since U.S. Constitution has this clause about interstate matters. Federal courts, in many cases, they can hear cases which involve someone who has like issues in different states. What state courts do, they try to establish autonomy of state legal system. Important to understand, a federal system, they have 94 US federal district courts. An important thing to understand about American system is that any judge in those 94 federal districts, any of those judges can block executive order issued by a president. There are fewer Court of Appeals, 13, and they hear cases when different district courts had like different rulings. In those cases, almost automatically, those cases go to Court of Appeals. And this would be the map of Court of Appeals, which states they cover under their jurisdiction. Important thing about American political system and how it's different in, let's say, continental Europe is that in America, there's this idea of precedent. Similar cases based on like similar law have to be decided in similar way. This is American thing, and lawyers always cite previous decisions by previous courts on similar matters when they argue cases. Lawyers in Europe, in continental Europe, they don't do that. Yeah, and this is like why having a precedent could be useful. So we have some kind of consistency in legal system. This is the process how folks get to be a federal judge. There are some hearings in the Senate Judicial Committee. Thing though, there's this rule that if a judge is from a particular district and if a senator is from the same state, that senator has the right, not the right, but a custom. A senator from a particular state can block nomination of someone who wants to be a federal district judge. This is kind of custom about Senate Judiciary Committee. Again, after committee, the judges get to be approved by whole Senate. An important thing, there are no term limits. The person who usually tries cases on behalf of federal government in Supreme Court is Solicitor General. Whenever federal government is involved in a case before Supreme Court, it's a Solicitor General who tries that court. And sometimes Solicitor Generals, they could be Supreme Court judges later. I think Sotomayor, before becoming Supreme Court judge, she was Solicitor General in Obama administration, but I might be wrong. You can Google it. Basic structure of Supreme Court, it has 9 judges. They have Chief Justice, who is most important judge on the court. And again, Supreme Court rulings are kind of final. It's very hard to change them. You need to have like a later Supreme Court can change a Supreme Court decision. Congress can change like the basis of the law. Another way would be to pass constitutional amendment. So like Supreme Court rulings are like kind of final for the most part. Thing is, Supreme Court is very selective. They reject most cases that like are submitted to them, and usually the way how it works, again, you need 4 judges to say yes, we want this case on our bench. Another common rule would be, again, remember, if you have different rulings in the district judges, then those 2 different rulings get appealed in Court of Appeals. If you have, and this is, for instance, it's like a big national case which involves many states. If you have 2 different rulings from 2 different Court of Appeals, almost like automatically such case will end up on Supreme Court consideration. Yeah, and if there's like federal government involved, Solicitor General has a role in trying cases. The way it usually works, after a case is agreed to be argued, different sides submit briefs. Interest groups, they submit amicus curiae briefs. The thing about amicus curiae briefs, like an organization might ask Supreme Court to say, we have an important opinion and you need to take into account our opinion. And at the discretion of the court, court can allow some organization to become friend of the court, and they get to submit this amicus curiae briefs. Then, like the oral arguments, people submit their points of view, and then there's a decision. Kind of funny thing about Supreme Court deliberations, judges get to like ask questions and express opinions in the order of their seniority. So the person who was appointed last gets to speak last. Obviously, the majority opinions, when most Supreme Court judges have the same opinion on the issue, and there could be someone like dissenting opinion, someone who have a different idea. In the current Supreme Court composition, liberals usually do dissenting opinions, since liberals are minority in US Supreme Court now, and I guess for the like foreseeable future. Courts and I would say judges might have different opinions on how they see their roles. Sometimes you have a period where you have judges who believe in this judicial activism. They believe that courts have important role in like changing public policy. Again, remember the decision about the segregation of public schools, things like that. They are considered judicial activism when a court makes a major decision and changes public policy. Some judges, they believe that they should not make major changes in public policy. They believe in this idea of judicial restraint. Thing to understand, Supreme Court, yes, it's powerful. Yes, it's extremely hard to change decisions made by Supreme Court, but there are some like checks on judicial system in this country. Obviously, check from executive branch, president gets to nominate judges, federal judges, Supreme Court judges, and Congress gets to approve those judges. If Congress doesn't approve, a particular person cannot be a judge. Thank you very much.